SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome to the course An Introduction to Disability Studies. Today we are going to talk about disability and the Industrial Revolution. Before I talk about disability and the Industrial Revolution, let's go back and see what we discussed in the last lecture, so that we can serve our memory, because all the lecture are linked in such a way that we can understand every lecture's discourse in relation to what we discussed in the last time. In the last lecture, I was talking about disability, disease and deformity. Now, the question is that why did we discuss about it? Because I wanted to make this point pretty clear that disability, disease and deformity are context specific and highly subjective. Every culture has its own way of thinking about deformity. There is a possibility that the person who is considered to be deformed in one culture will not be considered to be deformed in another culture, right? Or the person who is considered to be the normal in his own community, the moment he switches to the another community, there is a possibility that he may or she be seen as a disabled or deformed, all right. That is the one point that I made. Second point what I made is that there are various factors which are responsible for disease, disability and deformity. For example, for disease there are pathogens which are responsible. For disability, yes, to certain extent cognitive abnormalities or cognitive problems or physical problems are responsible, but environment structure is also one important factor that leads to disability. Then we come to disease, disability and deformity. So, deformity is not necessarily because of environment or because of disease, but yeah, certain medically people say that there are certain disease because of certain pathogens, virus, bacteria, certain other abnormalities, physical abnormalities. There is a possibility that one may get into so called deformity. But obviously, what the point I am making is here that deformity is more about aesthetic, right? It is how that people are being represented as a normal, and if you deviate that, you will be called deformed body. The second important point that I was making in this discourse is that if you look at the ancient societies, then medieval societies and then the modern society, if you look at the society as it progresses, you will realize, you will understand, you will notice that they all changed. It evolved, the very discourse, the very idea evolved. And that is where I have a question to ask, that if problem lies with the body, then why is it so the very definition, the very understanding changed from one society to the another society or in one time to the another time. So, which means to say that there is nothing wrong with the body, the problem lies in a way normative structures are defined, in a way normalcy is understood, in a way discourse of normality is produced for us. All right. One thing in the end which was extremely significant point I made is that they all are different, but they also share certain commonalities. So, it depends in the context in which we are talking about disability, disease and deformity. So, I am not saying they are extremely distinct, we cannot talk about them together, but also I am not saying that every time we must think that if disability, I am talking about disability, so obviously I am talking about disease. No, this is also wrong. It depends in what context I am speaking, what is the point I am making, what the definition I have picked up, or what issues and the problem I am addressing. They are become very important phenomena and concern to talk about disability studies or these kind of a different ideas, disability, deformity and disease. Now, picking up where I left from the last discourse. The way we understood disability, deformity and disease, why is it so that we do not look at them in the same way or in the same fashion in today's societies, right? That is a one question. You have to think before we proceed further. Second concern or the second question that I am asking is different one, is that what is the history of hospitals? Is hospital a new phenomena, or since the time we are born, like there is a human species existence on this earth, there were hospitals. Obviously, if you go back to the history, you will realize that hospitals never existed in ancient medieval society. Hospitals and prisons are a very new phenomena. So, when I am saying hospitals, I do not mean that the people were not falling ill, or I am not saying that there were no one who was taking care of them. I am not saying that there was no person who was coming and giving medicine. I am talking about the very institutionalized understanding of hospitalization. Hospitals came into the existence with certain reasons and certain ideas. However, I am not going to talk about the history of hospitals, because my discourse or my like today's lecture is dedicated to disability and the industrial revolution. But then you will ask, sir, then why are you talking about hospitals? Why did you raise this point that we must think about this idea called hospitals, or the origin of the hospitals, or the institutionalized idea of hospitals? Is because after industrial revolution, things were never the same as they were. Things changed drastically different. As every notion, every idea, every thinking transformed. So, the very idea of a human is not the way it was understood before industrial revolution. Hospital is also, obviously it started coming into the existence a little bit before the industrial revolution, but due to industrial revolution everything altered, it got transformed, right. Now, what is industrial revolutions? One way to say that because of this revolution, right, one way to think that because of this revolution, people started getting jobs, people started getting employment, things became so easy, and in the industries lot of things were being produced which were not easily accessible by certain set of people, but now due to the industries things are now easily available to all of us, and the GDP per capita income has gone high. But let us not get into the economics or statistics, but what else industrial revolution did and how it is connected with disability studies, that is our important concern, and that is why we are going to talk today about disability and the industrial revolution. Before I move to the slide, I would like to make some ideas so that you can understand this lecture more comprehensively, more clearly and with more clarity, right. What are those points? First, the first point what I am making is, when the industrial revolution started coming into the place, they changed the entire understanding of the city and the rural. As you all know, if you have read the Victorian and Romantic age, you see that cities started coming into the picture. The very idea of city became very different. People started moving from rural side to the urban side. This is not a general and simple phenomena. You see, the population before industrial revolutions of the cities were very less than in comparison to the rural areas. But now the population of the cities are extremely high in comparison to the rural area. In fact, everyone wants to move to urban from rural areas, right. What is the second condition? The second is, now obviously, if I do not want to get into the marks, because if I get into the marks, it will take one like not one lecture, many lectures, but the idea what I want to talk about, that wages started coming into the existence. People are getting employment on the basis of certain capabilities and bodily performances. Let me note down this point on the slide so that you can understand this. Okay? So that you can understand the point I am making, and it will be easy for you. Capabilities, and there is another point, bodily performances, right. These are the two things now. Now, you will say, sir, initially also there were jewelries, there were carpenters, people have skills and people were working on that and they were getting job employment and opportunities. How can you say that capabilities and bodily performances became too important factor for someone to get a job in factories or industries? I would say that now industries are demanding a different kind of capabilities and bodily performances. So, initially, before industrial revolution came into the existence, people were getting jobs on the basis of capabilities, but there are people who are also working. However, a very specific, specialized capabilities were not required, that is, skill was not asked for. That is the one. Bodily performances is now has taken a new ideas, new shape. Now, people are asking that how much you can produce your labor power in a given period of time. So, it is not the case that, let us say for example, that you have to lift certain amount of a weight and finish this job. Now, you are being asked that you will be doing this particular job in this particular time with that much efficiency, with that much accuracy. So, people have become now more specific, demanding in terms of accuracy and specificities. So, which means to say the society is becoming more centralized and demanding a different new life skill set, and also they are asking you to be more like producing a labor power in such a way that you can be more specific in producing certain activities. Now, you see, this was not the case before. That is my argument, that is my problem, that is my question. Now, second question you are going to ask, how does it concern disability studies? Right? You may say, sir, but that's how does it talk about the course that we are dealing with? Now, my dear friends and students, you will notice that due to industrial revolutions, people with disabilities become negligent. They were looked down upon because they were considered that they cannot work in a given industries. They are asking for, they are looking for a very different kind of a body. Mind it, it is not only people with disabilities. It is not that the people who do not have limbs, they only became negligible, but also any kind of a body who is not able to work efficiently in that given period of time, they are also becoming part of disability. That is a discourse and concern. So, let us say for example, in that point of time the industry's condition was so pathetic, and trust me, even today they are not very in a good conditions, right. The work hazards, other environmental concerns, pollution level are very high for the workers. Now, people are testing the level of endurance, people are testing that how efficiently you can work. So, if you cannot efficiently work, however fit you look, however normal so called you look, but you will be considered as a person who is not worthy of living, not being part of the society. They are not important to us, right? And that is where our disability studies come into the picture. What Industrial Revolution did, before Industrial Revolution started, people with disability has a very different stature in the society. I am not saying that they were being respected, they had a very high regard, but what I am saying that it changed, it transformed the very understanding and thinking about disability. So, that is where our concern is. What else Industrial Revolution did? It took away a kind of a jobs where people with disabilities were working, where it took away a kind of a morphology of the society. It changed the very structure of the society. It made a kind of a structure where now it only certain set of people can survive, not the other kind of people. Society, due to Industrial Revolution, is not inclusive anymore, it is exclusive. You getting me what I am saying? Right? That is the point I am making. So, now the society has become more exclusive, not inclusive, and that is a concern, that due to the Industrial Revolution, society has become exclusive, not inclusive. So, does not it bother us? Because if, because of any factor, because of any reason, if society is being centralized in such a way that where it is only allowed those people who can produce a certain workforce and other people will not be considered equally like others, does it concern to all of us? Does not it bother to all of us? Right? That is a second proposition I am making, thinking about disability and industrial revolutions. Third, what happened because of the Industrial Revolution, now society is coming up with new ideas, new transformation in terms of science and technology. Now, you remember why did I talk one lecture on disability and the technologies? Because what is the Industrial Revolution? Industrial Revolution is possible because of advent of new technologies. If there is no availability or existence of new technologies, Industrial Revolution would have not taken place. And now you would say that, but sir, technology has a lot of good things which has done to us. I agree. I do not differ to this point. Obviously, I have made this point in our lecture called Disability and Technology, where I said that yes, because of disability and because of technology, people with disability got access to many buildings. Because of technology, they can read, educate, can get employment. It has provided many opportunities to them. But don't you remember, I also made this point that technology enables as well as exactly disables. That is a point, right? It enables, at the same time it disables. So, what about that part? Who is going to look that part? Who is going to examine that understanding? That the technology is not just a boon, it is also bane. It's not only has created good things, it also has damaged our identity, it has also damaged the very sense of a self, disabled peoples, right. Who is going to question and argue for this? So, therefore, think in that line that disability studies has a connection, huge connection with industrial technologies problems, what it has created. So, we need to get into this, we need to understand that. One more point I would like to make before I move to the slides, because see, I give this kind of open argument so that when I move to the slides, you can easily understand. You do not have to think, you do not have to bother about everything, because now I have given you a rough sketch about what disability what technology, what body, how does it connect with industrial revolution and all, right. So, when I read the slides, when I talk about the slides, you can easily relate. So, one more point I will make. Max Weber is a very famous social thinker. He said that capitalism was only possible in Protestant culture, not in the South Asian. However, there are many points they beg to differ here. But let me make a point which actually Weber was trying to say, that South Asian society was not ever concerned about more, they were not concerned about being workaholic, right, workaholic, you are constantly thinking about work. They had made a very clear division about their lifestyle. Okay, I will do this much kind of a work, then I will go to this much and I will sleep. They are not very much towards every time you have to keep working. But you read that book, Protestant and the Ethics of Capitalism, that is by Max Weber, where he says that we need to talk about it, we need to work on it, we need to keep working on it, and that is how we can serve the God, and that is why capitalism emerged. Why I am talking about the capitalism today in relation to industrial revolution? Because everyone who has read a little bit, little bit about capitalism, they will understand that capitalism needed industrial revolutions, because capitalism is more oriented towards profit making, right. It is not concerned about anything in one line. If I say the capitalist society is more about profit, if you are making a profit, you are going to be acceptable. And in capitalism, a kind of a body will get respect provided it is contributing in economy. So, your body has now been reduced to a machine which is demanded to produce something. Produce not something means anything, understand this, only those things which is required for the society, right. So, like, let me make this point clear so that you will understand. So, people say now that machines are coming and snatching the job, but there is another argument people say who support, they say that there is a new kind of employment is coming into the picture. So, the people should not be worried about employment, because AI or other technology also need people. However, I beg to differ to a certain extent, but the point what I am making is this, that one way or other way people are getting transformed. Their thinking capacity, their working capacity, their living capacity are being challenged, and every day they have to refresh themselves and be ready to accommodate the new challenges are coming and are they facing. If you are not able to do so, trust me, you are going to be sidelined. You will be thrown outside. You are not part of any streamlined society, and that is a concern. So, what capitalism does? Capitalism requires a kind of a person who can make profit for them. So, if your body, any kind of a body, either diseased body, disabled body, deformed body, able body, normal body, any body that you have, if you are not able to work according to the capitalist culture, if you are not able to perform according to the capitalist culture, you are going to be labeled or tagged as disabled. So, here you see disability has nothing to do with the body. I mean, it has something to do with the body, but generally it is constantly being reproduced. Like today in a society, in an age, you say that this kind of body is disabled, but tomorrow it's possible that you are going to stretch line and you say now this kind of body are also disabled. So, here you see I am making this point, then I will move to the slide, that anyone who is not able to work today according to the capitalist culture are going to fall in the category of disability. All right. So, I will elaborate all these points, but it was important to give you a detailed extensive introduction to this lecture, so that when I move to the slides, you can easily understand the point I am making. All right. Now, let us move to the next slide. That is the first slide and first important points I am making. How did the expansion of industry, right? These are the questions, right? Remember, my dear friends, most of the lecture you must have noticed that I open it up with certain questions. Should I stop? So, there is a certain questions you will see that I raise in every lecture. Why do I raise those kind of a question? Because as a part of my pedagogy, I want to stimulate your mind first. I do not want to give you all the points and okay, you are listening and the point is done. No, I start raising certain questions in lectures so that you get stimulated, your mind gets activated, you start thinking, right. So, that is part of my pedagogy. Now, look at the question that I am raising, think for it. Okay, look at the first point. How did the expansion of industry impact the frequency of injuries, disease and impairment? That is the first question. Look at this. Expansion of industry impact the frequency of injuries, disease and impairments. What is the second question? Look at this set of question that I am raising for you. What was the fate of those who became disabled as a result of accident or illness during industrial revolution? See, why? Because as you know that when you are like as I told you that industry's conditions were not really good, they were really horrible. A lot of people died, they suffered from certain diseases and certain people also met due to certain accident got disabled, right. So, when I am saying this, understand that industry is not something very good situations. There were very horrible and filthy conditions in which people were working in those industries, right. Look at this point again, go back to the slides. How did individual with impairments navigate the evolving system of welfare and medical assistance? What role did disability play in industrial politics? Did the changes brought about by industrialization result in increased marginalization of disabled individuals? How inclusive was the workplace towards men, women and children with impairments, right? And the last question that I am going to ask, what insights can be gained from studying the industrial revolution through the lens of disabled people in order to deepen our understanding of work and its political dynamics in historical context. So, while disability has often been overlooked in traditional narrative of industrialization, it holds a significant importance in disability studies, particularly in the context of industrial revolution, right. So, in the first slide you see, I raised certain points, right. I made certain points, so that you should not get confused that industrial revolution has only connection with economy or country's GDP or national capital income and so on and so forth. Actually, what happened then when these kind of ideas are emerged, most of the time what happens, people with disabilities or disability arguments are not taken into the account. As I always say, I always keep arguing that these kind of discourses are missing from academic culture. However, people are talking about disabilities and its pros and cons and the problem they are facing, but people do not talk much about disability in academic culture, even if they have become part of civic culture. I mean, I am sure that you all remember Bhopal gas tragedy, you see the kind of tragedy happened because of the gas leak, and everyone started talking about the environmental problems, industries, how big companies are coming and looting. But later on, because of the disability movements and certain theoreticians and activists, there is a study also done, but very late, and still there is study need to be done on effect it had on people with disabilities and their lives. I mean, it will be, I have not seen so far, but still I would like to see that whether the lives of these disabled people who are still living are documented anywhere, right? Because that will give you a very pretty clear picture of people who met these accidents in the Bhopal gas tragedy, and how they are living the life, how they lived the life, how they experienced. Because two things would happen here, my friends. Here one see that there are people who were able, so called able, considered able, eventually they got disabled. So, that will give you a very clear sense that how did it happen, what is happening, how it is moving from one to the another, right. So, think about it, but this is will be very interesting to see, and I am giving you this example so that you can easily relate that industrial revolution has direct connection and relation with disability. Bhopal gas tragedy is an example that you can see in India, in Madhya Pradesh state, right. So, there are people who are living, and what their experiences are, how do they look at industries, that would be a significant study, right. So, let us think about it, we can do some time later. So, here I am asking these questions because there is a connection of industrial revolution with disability studies. Let us move to the next point, and next slides please. And one thing more I would like to make before I move to the next slides, that most of the time what happens that we are more engaged in the traditional narratives, and we are not able to see that there are more complex experiences are already there, which need to be read and studied, right. So, let us move to the next slide please. Within this field, there is a prevalent belief that economic development of industrialization have profoundly shaped modern Western perception and experiences of disability. In the 1880s, Wittgenstein articulated a compelling argument suggesting that disability is fundamentally a product of industrial capitalism. This is a line, this is a sentence, need to be thought for a couple of minutes and hours, right. Why Wittgenstein, who is a disability scholar, is saying that disability is a fundamentally a product of industrial capitalism. Why is he saying so? Why is he saying so that disability is a fundamentally product of industrial capitalism? Because you remember, that is why I explained these points before I started reading or talking about the slides, is because that industrial capitalism demands a very different kind of a body, a different kind of a workforce, and if you are not able to meet that standard, you will be called disabled. So, disabled generally mean here in this context that you are not able to perform that role, you are not able to meet that standard, you are not able to work according to the capitalist culture. That is why you are called disabled, right. So, this statement is made in that context, right. So, look at what else he has to say. The economic transformation of the industrial revolution brought about a significant shift in social status of individual with impairments. Think for a second, because what modern industrialization did, it changed the entire work culture. Now, it is producing a kind of a work culture where certain kind of people will not be able to work. the people, the kind of a people who are efficient, who can work in certain situations, who can make living for their life, that has been snatched out, that has been taken away from them. Now, you see why people are moving from villages to the city, because systematically the work culture of a village are destroyed, and they want people to come to the city and work for them. And obviously, Marx talks more about it, about the surplus value, profit, so on and so forth, but I will not come over here. But I am constantly hinting Marx because I want you to read Marx. I am talking about Marx because you can go and read about Marx in detail way, because obviously you know that I am more talking about disability studies in relation to other things. I cannot talk one entire lecture on Marx, right. In some time, if I create another course on theories, then I think it will be beneficial, but I am just suggesting you that please read, I mean there is a book called of Capital, which is extensively large, but few chapters are really helpful, right. So, try to read his book, all right. So, what is this? The point what Vic Frankenstein is making is that there is a significant shift in the economy. Now, the economy is not anymore communist economy or socialist economy. It has become, it is slowly inclined or leaned towards capitalist economy, and due to that capitalist economy now social status is also changing, because if you are not able to participate in the production of a capitalist economy, you will not be considered as a valued citizen, right. You will not be thought as a good citizen. Moving to the next point. The increasingly faced challenges in securing employment under equitable terms, leading to their growing marginalization and social isolation. So, before the onset of industrialization, it is argued, like look at this point I am making, before the industrialization, right, because one, before and after, that is the moment you look at before industrialization and after, you will see a very different picture. Very different picture of disability. So, before the onset of industrialization, it is argued that individuals with physical impairments may have faced poverty and social stigma. All right, people with disabilities may have, but societal organization allowed them to engage in daily activities of the best of their abilities. That is the point I am making. That after the industrial revolution, the sense of alienation grew much more than what they had in before industrial society, right. So, it is not said that they did not face discrimination, it is not said that they feel neglected, but at least they were participating in the daily activities. There were possibilities available for them to go for their best of their abilities. But after industrial revolution, it was reduced, it was completely compressed, more centralized. Look at the next point I am making, go back to the slide please. The predominantly agrarian economy of the pre-industrial era, where production occurred within the home and work was task oriented, provided individuals with greater autonomy to manage their work schedule and practice. I would suggest you that hold on your slide for a second, read this point again, stop the video for a second, think on this point before I proceed further. Agrarian economy, my dear students, and capitalist economy, they two are very different, dynamically opposite, diagonally opposite to each other. Agrarian economy demands different kind of workforce. It allows different kind of people to participate in the production of agrarian economy. Capitalist economy needs a very specific workforce. The kind of labor it needs, labor power it needs, is very different. Agrarian economy can include diverse kind of a people. Capitalist economy needs only a certain set of people. Not all kind of bodies can be incorporated in capitalist economy. But in agrarian economy, every form of bodies can be incorporated. So, there was a greater autonomy. The practices of labor was more feasible for people with disabilities, and that is what taken away, that was thrown away from people with disabilities in capitalist economy due to the industrialization. Let us go to the next point. While living with impairments presented challenges, the flexible structure, demands and expectations of pre-industrial life enabled permanently injured or chronically ill individuals to contribute to productive socially valued roles. That is the point I am making, right. Even if you are disabled, even if you are ill, even if you are chronically have something problematic, but still you can be productive. Your role are socially valued. That is not the case in capitalist economy. That is because of industrialization. Go to the next point, please. Look at the slide. The advent of industrialization significantly undermined, this is a point, please note down. Industrialization significantly undermined somatic flexibility. The Gleason is making this point. Impaired individuals were compelled into less desirable social position as industrialization progressed. Look at the difference, right. The one, there was a somatic flexibility which is not in the industrialization, and impaired individuals were more compelled to be in a position which was not very favorable for them, right. So, it compelled into less desirable social position as industrialization progress. The accelerated pace of production linked with mechanized factory work, stricter enforcement of workforce discipline, heightened emphasis on punctuality. Look at this, that is what I was talking about, right. Accelerated pace of production linked with mechanized factory work, stricter enforcement of workforce discipline, heightened emphasis on punctuality, the standardization and regulation of production. These elements are believed to create hostile and unwelcoming environments for people with disabilities within that workplaces. So, with these impairments, right, those who have a disabled body, if not entirely excluded from employment, they were often relegated to peripheral, look at this, peripheral or menial roles that offered minimal rewards and held low social status, and it resulted in that they became labeled as disabled, marginalized and stigmatized as unproductive member of the society. You understood this idea, right. So, the point is that one line I would say, just to make this entire slides clear to you, they are, you have to be a productive member of the society if you do not want to be labeled as disabled, marginalized or stigmatized. You have to be productive member of the society to be respected, but to be productive member of the society, you have to work in a mechanized work. To be a productive member of the society, you have to follow certain strictly prescribed rules. No one is bothered about however mechanized, constricted it is. You got this idea? So, this is what I am talking about, that how industrialization forced people to become disabled. Right? Look at the next slide, please. In response to this perception, industrial societies developed institutional solutions, leading to the segregation of many disabled individuals into specialized facilities, isolating them from the broader community. This inclination towards institutionalization was notably articulated by Finkelstein, although others also support this notion, albeit with slight variations. By the conclusion of the industrialization era, individuals with impairments were increasingly viewed as burdens. Burden, look at this, like disabled people are now burden, right? This is what. So, in principle, they were deemed better suited to institutional care rather than integration within the community. Now, look at this departure. This is what called departure in understanding of disability. They are now becoming part of institutional care rather than integration within the community. Right? In an era marked by vigorous productivity, those not engaged in a work were viewed with disdain and held accountable for their poverty and hardships. So, societal norm dictated a differentiation between able-bodied individuals who choose not to work and those physically impaired. The latter were deemed rightful recipients of charity, while the former were labeled as lazy and deserving of punishment. So, this distinction ultimately led to segregation of disabled individuals from the rest of the society. Even among the unemployable, those with physical impairment were to be separated from their peers. All right, so let me make this point again. So, the point what I am making is this: because of industrialization, now disabled people has become part of burden. Now, people look at them as a burden. Oh, in fact, Malthus, I must tell you this, in the Victorian age, Malthus also made this point, and he made this point because obviously he also thought in the same way as industrialized people or people who were supporting industrialization were talking in the same line. So, they were also talking about that they have become disabled, all right. They have become burden in our societies. Why they have become a burden in our society? Think for a second. Because society is transformed, now they are asking for mechanized work to be done, and if you are not able to do, then you are not contributing in the capitalist economy, and if you are not contributing into the capitalist economy, then what? Then how will you earn? What people will do? So, they are thinking that, oh, they are not contributing anything in us. So, if they are not contributing in generating economy, so what they have become? They have become burden. It is we who are working and we are paying for them, rather than realizing that the society is created in such a way that only few people, set up people can work for this. And there is an interesting point that makes. In fact, I would suggest to you that please read Foucault to have a very better understanding of this, right. And I mean, there is a book, a series of lecture that he has compiled is called Abnormal, right. So, I would suggest you that please read that, a series of lecture in here he talks about. So, the idea is that now disabled people are considered to be part of institutional care, which means to say now they have to go and seek the help from doctors, physicians, medical practitioners so that they can be produced in such a way so that they can participate in that capitalist culture. So, the point is going into the institutional care is not because there is a problem with the body, but because they can be transformed or altered or changed in such a way so that they can work for the capitalist economy. So, this is a very important point is being made by Wittgenstein. The point we are making, like in fact Gleason, Wittgenstein, Seldrick, there are many thinkers are making is this, that institutional care is being provided so that not because they are disabled, but because they are not able to contribute in this economy. And it is extremely required, it is extremely necessary that this should generate economy for us. So, now you see how the transition happened, now you see how the work culture is being transformed, now you see that how things are changing, and most important is not that how things are only changing outside, how our perception is also changing when we think about people with disabilities. So, when we see people with disabilities, we think, oh, they are burden on us, oh, they are not able to do something and they are living on our mercy. Right? In fact, I have met many people and they have the same opinion. I tell you this, it is not something strange or new phenomena. Right? It is not that you just are reading, you have like if you go outside in the society, you talk to the people, and then you will realize that people share the same opinion about people with disability, that yes, they are burdened, they are not able to do work. No one understands that society is created, is going in that direction where most of the people are going to fall in the category called disability. All right. So, let us go to the slide again please. It is important to note that while receiving charity rather than facing punishment for employment had its benefit, it came at the cost of being removed from the social fabric initially. This separation occurred within working class families and later extended to the marginalized layer of societies. Right? So, the point what I am making here is look at it. It is not that while receiving charity, this is the point, rather than facing punishment for unemployment had its benefit. Look at the change. I mean, initially they were receiving the charity, now what is happening? They are receiving punishment. That is a shift. That is a shift. So, they were receiving charity, they were obviously handy in cap, you see that they are beggars, they were treated like a beggars. But now, the change in the industrial society because of the transitions, they are facing punishment, they are going to the institutional layer. There are people who are watching them, they are asking them that you are supposed to work on your bodies. You feel humiliated when you look at yourself. Industrial society has dehumanized you, alienated you from your own people. From the society in which you were living, at least you were participating, obviously there was certain discrimination, but now you do not go there because you know that you are not able to produce something for the society, and that is a problem, that is a shift I am talking about. Let us look at the next point on the slides please. It came at the cost of being removed from the social fabric. See, removed from the social fabric, and this separation occurred within working class families and later extended to the marginalized layer of the society. Right? Look at the another point. So, by the late 1800 and into the 20th century, it became widely accepted. I am talking about late 18th, which means to say that late 17th industrialization started coming into the shape, right. So, it became widely accepted that disabled people should be protected by placement, right. It should be protected by placement in large institutions or in cases where families resisted abandonment, hidden from the public view. So, charity remained the primary source of income for the disabled populations, right. So, the point what is it is made here, that industrialization which came into the existence on the name of development and progress, or let us say put it this way, holistic development and progress, it did not do anything good for people with disabilities. More than that, it created a lot of problems for people with disabilities. So, first they were placed for the institutional care. Second, they were produced as a burden on the societies. Third, there is no better livelihood or employable conditions available for them. They are still being stigmatized and discriminated in a society. They were removed from the social fabric, right. So, there is a punishment for them. Modern society which is relied upon capitalist economy led by industrialization ensured that now people will be happy, they will have agency, they will be able to perform certain roles, they will be able to do certain things, people will grow, people's life conditions, I am using the word, their life condition will be better. But in result, it got deteriorated. They are being punished in a different ways. And trust me, it is not about the one person, it is not about the certain set of people, it is not about the body who is deformed or disabled. Because remember what Finkelstein says, that every day, every time industrial capitalism is working, and if you are not able to perform the assigned roles, you will be treated as a disabled candidate. So, you are constantly working on yourself. You think that are you able to produce something significantly or not, right. So, this is a moral hazard, I would say, done by industrial capitalism. So, here things are shifting, things are changing and making more horrible and horrific for people with disabilities. So, as a disability studies students, if we are concerned about this kind of a condition generated by industrial capitalism, if we are thinking about that what we are supposed to do to make the conditions better for people with disabilities, or in fact, if we want to promote a very inclusive societies, we all must come together and challenge these notions, challenge these ideas and engage more deeply in these issues. So, remember all the important points that I made, all the questions that I raised in first of my slide. These are the questions I raised so that you can think in that way when I am moving to the slides further. Because until and unless you reflect on those concerns, on those questions that I raised, it will be difficult to understand that how disability is directly related, or let me put this another way, how discourse of disability is directly related to industrialization or industrial capitalism or capitalist economy and capitalist culture. And trust me, if agrarian economy is uprooted completely, the level of alienation will grow much more than what it is today, right. So, it is our job to constantly talk about promoting social inclusion, where we see that people with disabilities are removed from the social fabric. All right. So, with this I would end this lecture here, and as usually I request that please read more, engage deeply with this kind of a discussion, read Wittgenstein, read Gleason and Marx and Foucault if possible. If you get time, do read it. All right. So, with this I will say bye bye, take care, have a happy time. Thank you.